We have gone down a rabbit hole or two this week, and I'm kind of like making sure I don't lose the plot. It seems like there's it's sort of a theme that might unite the whole conquest of my week here. Beginning with this idea that political spiritual warfare is here. This was the last live stream that I did. I essentially attempted to record a podcast live. It was an interesting experiment. I'm not sure that it worked out too well, but if you were here last week, it was fun. I still had fun. So, and if you're here this week, give me a shout out. Let me know you're hanging out. I don't have like branding and stuff to play before my live stream. I have this one thing that I made. And the one time I used this to like begin my stream, I got this really like nasty comment about how people hate it when it's like, oh, the stream is starting soon. Why did you play that? I was like, well, I played it because I'm kind of like doinking around, and I figured you didn't want to see me or hear me doinking around, but now you are, because I got that one comment. I had stopped using that. But anyway, yeah, that was where things started. Was this theme that, essentially we talk a lot of politics in America, particularly in a year that's leading to an election. And this year, more so than any other time, I hear people, sort of willing to at least entertain the thought that politics is downstream from theology, that there are other forces at work in this world. And I guess I could play it, but I'm gonna get a. Did you know that by ad? Sorry about that. One day I'll get YouTube Premium. There we go. And so if you go all the way to the end, I left off. There it is. I left off with this from Lord of the Rings. That there are other forces at work in the world other than those that have a will towards evil. And I just really enjoy this scene. It kind of plays in my mind every once in a while.
Who live to see such times, but that is not for them to decide. All we have to decide is what to do with the time that is given to us. There are other forces at work in this world, Frodo, besides the and that is an encouraging thought.
That there are reasons to be encouraged. There are things to encourage us. But it was really interesting that this theme popped up, and it seemed to be kind of all over the place. So much so that even after I was done recording, I threw in this little clip from Jordan Peterson's Karl Marx and the Devil conversation, which I thought was fascinating. Did anybody see that? Hi, Emily. Ship clerk, how's it going? Did anybody listen to this? Awesome. Yes. The crew is back. I was talking about last week's live stream. This Jordan Peterson here. I got it queued up here somewhere. Whoo, the Devil and Karl Marx. So it's just interesting, right? That the years. Oh, Luciferian. Thank you. We'll have to make the adjustment there. Here's what we'll do. We're gonna play that typo off as though it's like code. That way the algorithm doesn't really find us. They won't know what we're talking about. They won't know that we're on to them. I don't know who I'm talking about, by the way, but the Luciferian spirituality, the connection between politics and theology, the connection between what we're seeing in the city, what we're seeing in society, being downstream of essentially what the Bible would say is powers and principalities, right? Let me see. pop up Logos here and just have it on hand, because we're gonna go. I'm gonna take you into this rabbit hole with me. So sorry. That's where things left off last week. Was looking at this. I may have to do more on this. I actually studied Marxism early on, not long after I became a Christian, and one of the most sort of like real moments of spiritual warfare I ever experienced, and I went to tribal places where there's all kinds of witch doctors and stuff like that. But one of the times that I felt like we were engaging in spiritual warfare was actually praying against this sort of this rising sort of communism that we were seeing. And this is back in the day. But weird, right? Weird that you would think, oh, that's just some sort of, economic theory. And yet this conversation between Jordan Peterson and Dr. Paul Kengor really lays out that there is some deep-seated darkness that goes into it, and you can see that in the fruit of it. I mean, you look at what Marxism has produced just in history. It's like you look at the fruit and you go, wow, yeah, that's Luciferian. That's that's evil. That's darkness. Okay. Do I correct the typo, or do I leave it? I don't even know how I would do that. I'd have to open up another tab. I'm gonna leave it for now. Thank you though for letting me know, and I will I will correct it. So I basically had this video. I have so many tabs open. Forgive me. I had this video basically done, spiritual political warfare, and then just felt like, gosh, this is happening as I'm sort of creating it. It's popping up more and more, and more than any other time, at least in my life, has the conversation opened up to the possibility that there's more going on in the political world. It's not just ideologies. We're sensitive to the fact that those ideologies are tied to spiritual forces, cosmic powers, depending on how you read that. Yes, I was looking at Genesis 1. Depending on how that... did I spell Ephesians wrong? This is annoying. I'll get this out of the way. Different translations will translate this differently. Give me not that. Yes, that one. You'll be able to stand firm against the schemes of the devil. Struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers and against the powers, against the world forces. So this is NASB would translate this world forces of this darkness against spiritual forces of wickedness in heavenly places. And I think they do that because it seems like some will translate this cosmic forces, but cosmic forces and spiritual forces seems redundant. So it seems like Paul is saying that there's a unification between rebellious sort of spiritual forces and rebellious world forces. But essentially that would be the sort of Luciferian spirituality, or the political spiritual warfare that we're talking about. And so I set up to, well, let's do this. I was what was I? I was inspired. I was inspired by Grim Grizz. The way things work and behave at the subatomic and quantum level lends credence to the spiritual things. Yeah, that there's more to this world than just the stuff. There's more going on. And it's really interesting that this, and maybe it's, I mean, it seems like post-COVID, and then with all the freaking alien declassifications and all this stuff going on, it's like people are starting to, I don't know. I think what it is, maybe you guys can help me out in this one. Is it just that it doesn't sound so crazy anymore? And it's like back in the day, you sounded like a crazy person if you were to say, "Oh, the devil inspired Karl Marx." You would have sounded crazy. And yet now, you have Jordan Peterson essentially doing a nearly 2 hour conversation on precisely that. How many views does this thing have? 320,000 views in less than a week. I mean, that's more views than I have. So I don't know what that means. Maybe that's a lot. It seems like a lot. Let's see. The Joe Rogan, Billy Carson one has 3.9 million. So it's not quite there. It's not quite that. Yeah. Scott, what's going on? Thanks for saying hi. It's good to know you're here. Yeah, the UFO stuff. Hey, awesome. Is that Aslan? I was asking you last week. Is the picture of your what would you call that? That's your channel name, I guess. What is it? Your handle? What do you call these things? It's a lion. But here, I'll show you something. I note this because I have this graphic that I use sometimes. This is the essentially, you can imagine this as the giants, Nephilim, whatever. These are the cosmic forces, and then you have this sort of like glowing-eyed Aslan on the other side, this sort of Christ figure. So I always think of that. I don't know. Maybe that's just that imagery is always kind of interesting to me. The Aslan, the Lion of Judah. Okay, and since we're talking about the darkness, this is what Grim Grizz inspired me. And since I don't know how to do fancy things with branding, I'm just going to give it to you straight up.
Hey, Graham, I'm not in the room, right?
What room? I want to cast magic missile.
The room where he's casting all these spells from.
He hasn't cast anything yet. I am, though, if you'd listen. I'm casting magic missile.
Why are you casting magic missile? There's nothing to attack here.
I'm attacking the darkness.
Hey, Graham, I'm not in the room, right?
What
There
room?
you go. We're attacking the darkness. Thanks for being with me. We are. I
think what's going on is we have
Grim called me out. He said that I remind him of one of these guys, and I think that that's probably not a compliment, but I'll take it and run with it, because I do. Excuse me as I hit my microphone. I do tend to, hopefully not, hopefully there's intent behind sort of chasing some of these themes. I do feel like, who is it? Robert Downey Jr., towards the end of the first Sherlock Holmes, he's like, I dirtied my fluffy white tail, but I've emerged enlightened. But he goes down and figures out this whole situation that's going on. Okay, that's what we're doing. We are attacking the darkness, but we're attacking it together. Cool. Thank you. Awesome. For answering my question. Thank you for satisfying my curiosity. That's cool. I like that. And so, this guy, Billy Carson, who the heck is this guy, and why did he show up freaking everywhere? That's my question. This is the dark hole that I sort of went into, because I saw him on Joe Rogan. I didn't pay a lot of attention to him because, having listened to Michael Heiser, I hear some of this and I don't know, I guess it just didn't invoke anything. I just went, okay, yeah, this is kind of it's kind of old. It's not new, I guess, maybe. And maybe I should have paid more attention to it. A lot of people just sort of debunked him, this Billy Carson guy. He does kind of sound like a quack. He probably is something like that. Maybe that's not a nice thing to say. But what was interesting is actually something that came out in my conversation with Luis Marcos. you'll know that Louis Marcos has, done a lot of work in sort of pagan mythology, and then realizing that some of the pagan myth is really preparing people to hear the gospel in a profound way. And so there's these seeds of truth, and I should have clipped it, but essentially I said that it seems like as you read through pagan mythology, and you read through these classic works, it's like God was preparing the Hellenistic world to receive the gospel, because it just seems very blatant. Now, of course, you could say, he lays out how you read, 4 different ways you can read the myth, and in fact, I clipped that if you want to just get straight to that point. I put that in a separate clip. I would encourage you, though, if you haven't watched this, I think Louis Marcos is great. And I was really happy that he sat down with me for an hour and chatted. Some of you know I did work in classical studies, and so I love the classical studies and biblical theology aspect of this conversation. And so it seems like what happens is when the truth that has been seeded in the lie, because of course the enemy always essentially has to put a seed of truth in with every lie so that the lie is somewhat believable. And then you ask the question, well, why would God allow such a thing? And what it seems is that eventually that lie or the truth that's seeded into that lie begins to grow and bear fruit. There's lots of lies here. But there's also partial truths, and when I say here, I'm looking at Genesis chapter 3, and I'm thinking of the conversation between the serpent and Eve and Adam and God. Now the serpent was more crafty than any beast of the field which God had made, and Adam would have known that. And he said to the woman, "Indeed, God has said, you shall not eat from the tree." Indeed, has God said, you shall not eat of the tree of the garden. The woman said to the serpent, "From the fruit of the tree of the garden we may eat, but from the fruit of the tree which is in the middle of the garden, God said, you shall not eat from it or touch it." That's a lie. That's not true. That's not what God said to Adam. Now, God said that to Adam before Eve was created, and the implication there, at least the way I interpret the text, is that Adam, as the steward, was then to pass on the story of the garden to Eve, the commandment that God had given about the tree. And it seems that Adam mishandled that message, that story, and then told Eve, because where does she get this idea that you can't touch the tree? I'm assuming it came from Adam. So this is like there's a fancy word for this, but there's like the sin that precedes the sin. It's like primal sin, or they're primitive sin or something. There's an interesting. Anyway, I'm getting distracted. That's a lie. And then, of course, the serpent lies and says, "You, if you eat of the fruit, you'll be like God." He's saying this to Adam and Eve, who were made in God's image. Of course, they were already like God. So there's the other lie. But of course, there's some truth. Your eyes will be opened. You'll know good and evil. And it seems that as that truth stays with the lie, eventually the lie is not strong enough to endure. And what endures is truth. Okay, so that was a big, long way of saying it seems like truth eventually feeds on the dead, dying, and decaying lies that are built around these little seeds of truth. And so you take that to Joe Rogan and this Billy Carson. He's essentially retelling the Genesis 6 narrative about the Nephilim, and as though the rebellious sons of God are actually doing what is right. And so he's using the story of Genesis, but flipping it over and saying it's actually Yahweh was in the wrong, and it's actually the devil that was right. So it's very interesting to sort of pick up on the truths that are nested in those lies. Okay, so I think hopefully I sort of set that up because it just was like, why is this guy everywhere? He was on Joe Rogan. Let's see, he was on the first place I actually saw him was on with Sean Ryan, and I don't have that clipped, but it doesn't matter. He was on Sean Ryan, and it was like kind of whatever, and then he's on Joe Rogan, and I'm kind of like, okay, whatever, and then he's on with Patrick Bet David, and that was today, literally as I'm working on this again, just like the Karl Marx and the devil one. It was weird. It was really weird, and he says this: Jesus was an alien, and that triggers me to Heiser. That's why I brought up Heiser. Okay, so I don't know if I. Yeah, hopefully I sort of navigated that. I think I'm going to have to catch up on chat. If you guys have a question for me, maybe type question, like all caps question. Okay, okay, yeah, good. Okay, sorry, I'll try not to get distracted by that. I'm sure it's annoying to hear me when I look over and I see there's all kinds of chat that I've missed, and then I feel like I don't want to miss the chat, but I don't have the branding. I need like a 3-minute branding clip to play, and then I can catch up on the chat. But anyway, hopefully you guys are hanging in there. Matthew Parlato, what's up? Okay, so when I hear someone say Jesus was an alien, I go, all right, it's Heiser time. Now you pissed me off. You know, at first I kind of dismissed it, and then it gets. I guess you see it enough, and now you got to attack the darkness. So here's Michael Heiser.
I think what's going on is we have intelligent beings, intelligent non-human, divine, spiritual beings, whatever you want to call them, trying to control the language of spirituality. I think this is the goal of intelligent evil in this regard. Redefining things like God. What does that word even mean? Who are we? What does it mean to be human? How did we get here? Who put us here? And what is our destiny? How do we have a relationship with this God? Have we offended him? Is there such a thing as sin or not? But I think the intelligent evil wants to control and redefine the terminology. They want God redefined as a transcendent extraterrestrial. They want Jesus redefined as a messenger from the transcendent extraterrestrial, or an extraterrestrial himself. They want the need of humanity not equated with sin, a solution for sin, but to evolve, to be a transcendent being. This is something akin to, conceptually at least, when the Nachash, the serpent, walks up to Eve and says, hey, did God really say? And then they have a conversation where Eve is misled or misdirected, led to process what God said in a different way, having the meaning of these terms altered, even slightly. We are embracing a non-gospel. We are embracing a different Christ. And I think that's actually the goal.
So that is actually the goal, is to, essentially change the language. That's why Billy Carson is retelling the Genesis 6 narrative, but basically saying the whole situation was good. It was good that they were acting in rebellion to Yahweh and having this essentially I did a longer video on this, but an unholy attempt at incarnation and Trinity is what it comes down to. It is called, the video is called Giants from Genesis to Revelation. That's where I started using this image of the giant. Here it is, Giants from Genesis to Revelation. And it unpacks Heiser's counsel of God, divine counsel thing pretty clearly. But that's the goal. The goal is switching the language so that what comes into our mind when we think about God is perverted and twisted. And you hear that, and then you literally, like, it's the same thing. And here he is, just basically
I think
saying,
Jesus was half human, half alien, and I'll tell you why. when you look at the apocrypha text, you discover, first of all, in the regular Bible, you discover he's born of a virgin birth, right? But then in the apocrypha text, you discover that his grandmother was also born of a virgin birth. So it seems like this establishment of a bloodline there specifically. When you read the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, you discover that he talks about he developed the ability to incarnate at will on and in any plane that he desires. That's pretty powerful stuff. He's saying he can come back however he wants and when he wants and in any dimension that he wants. He even talks about having rejuvenation chambers, which is what I believe the Serapeum is located in Saqqara in Egypt, is one of his rejuvenation chambers, where they would actually create bodies and put bodies in these gigantic megaton stone boxes made of granite and diorite, which are still radioactive, by the way. You can take your Geiger counter, they're still radioactive. They have an energy source coming out of them. And then he said that I think Jesus was half human, half alien, and I'll tell you.
Yeah. Okay, and then next one.
That I would transfer my consciousness from one body to the next. He would leave another body in there rejuvenating for 100 years, then he'd come back and get it, and he'd do that over and over again. And by that method, he lived through eons. Pretty interesting.
Yeah. So, okay. It's the same thing. You will not die. You won't die. And there's always this... Why is it always tablets, right? Why is it always tablets that nobody can see? It's the same thing with Joseph Smith. It's the same thing with these Emerald Tablets of Thoth. And it's the same thing with because what Billy Carson, as far as I can understand, is talking about is actually just a plagiarism. Here, I'll post this in the chat, but it's essentially a plagiarism from Lovecraft, H.P. Lovecraft. And you can look up his books, and they sound very much like this story that Billy Carson is talking about. So there's the article if you want to read it. It's not like super in depth, but he does compare the different things, and it seems like it's there, but again, I think you would have to go through this and read this guy's writings. But one of these stories, I think it's in one of his more famous writings, there's essentially this rejuvenation chamber. This is essentially what this character does, is perpetually incarnate in various bodies. I haven't read the books, so don't quote me on that, but it's very similar, if not the same. So, yeah, so there is sort of like legend about the mother of Mary, but of course you see the bait and switch there. It's like, I'm going to use the Bible, and then I'm going to immediately go over to the apocryphal text, which it's like, okay,
I would transfer my consciousness from one
like
body to the next. He would leave another body in there rejuvenating for 100.
Essentially, it's like, people will believe Jesus is anyone other than who he said he was. Like, that's what it comes down to, is this immediately switching to another source that has less scholarly feedback on it. I mean, the New Testament is the most scrutinized collection of historic works ever, and so you would just have you have hundreds and thousands of people over the last 2,000 years ish looking at this collection of texts. You just have you have less accountability, I guess I would say, in some of these other ancient texts. And even he's talking about the Emerald Tablets of Thoth. They don't exist like that. Like, nobody, it's an idea. And even it's borrowed from the Hermes Trismegisto. It's borrowed from that legend. I don't think I have it here. Where there are tablets. There are like emerald tablets that are supposed to have existed, and other ancient writings do have them listed, but nobody has seen them. So it's it's just that ancient sources are even talking about them that we believe they might exist. But this book that he's selling isn't really. It's essentially, as far as, again, this is the rabbit hole that I went down, and now I'm pulling you down. It's essentially a ripoff of H.P. Lovecraft's sci-fi. So you can look at the article that I linked in here, and you can go down that rabbit hole a little bit more. But it's funny. It's always the stinking emerald tablets. Yeah, they're under the Sphinx's paw, of course. They're in, just right where he left them, I'm sure. And so it's, the guy that supposedly found them, he's not a scholar, he's not an archaeologist, he was a cult leader. So there you go. Take that for what it is. I don't know how many cult leaders you've met. They're not all that bad, but it's pretty rare to find an honest one. Let's just say that. And so it's always the stinking tablets, and then it's always I lost the tablets, dang it. It's like the Ten Commandments, when he drops one, what's that? Anyway, I'm scatterbrained. Sorry, guys. Hope you're having fun. I see chat. I'm not reading all of it, but I'm trying to think of the producer that did the Ten Commandments spoof. It's sort of like that, but it's worse, right? It's kind of the same recycled lie. Emerald tablets, nobody knows where they are. Joseph Smith found golden tablets, nobody knows where they are. And what's essentially written in those golden tablets, it's the inverse of what we have in the biblical text. God is actually Satan. Man can become God. The Nephilim were doing good. There's all this alchemy that we have, all this secret knowledge that we have access. So so ancient tablets, keys to eternal life, secret knowledge, and there's always a transaction. That's what it comes down to. And I pointed that out in this video towards the end. There's always a freaking transaction. And so when you kind of go, okay, Billy Carson, you're saying stuff, but why? There's always something to be gained. Now, are we all free from this? No. I mean, I would hope, I get something out of this podcast. I get something out of doing these live streams. But hopefully I'm giving more than I'm getting. I enjoy hanging out with you guys. What I want out of this transaction, when you go to Christ, it's a free gift. That's the main point. I don't want to lose that point. We live in a fallen, broken world, and so there's this quid pro quo, right? There's this, I scratch your back, you scratch my back. What I want to get out of this podcast is feedback from a community. I love that you guys are here. That's what I get. My channel is monetized. I'll go, like that. So there's that. I hope that whatever I pour into this, my family gives of my time. They allow me to do this as a hobby. And they're we've invested money in, and so there's transactions that are going on. But when I see somebody on Joe Rogan, on Patrick Bet-David, on Sean Ryan, he's got books to sell, and essentially I would just say, I guess we're recycling these, this interesting science fiction from a guy named Maurice Doreal, I guess. I don't know. Yeah. Aliens rather than the Son of God. Yeah, the mental gymnastics. Yeah, and again, and it comes down to what are you willing to believe? And it seems like some people would rather believe Jesus was an alien than just read the biblical text for what they are and take Jesus at his word for who he said he is. And to to Michael Heiser's point, sometimes that deception is an honest one, just out of ignorance. Sometimes it's not. And so this thread continues. We got Heiser, and maybe this is to the Peugeot. Somebody had commented about Peugeot. Sorry, sorry, the Mary Magdalene thing triggered you guys. Hang in there. It's a side point. It really is. It's not really a sorry, I'm talking over this. Yeah, don't get maybe sucked down that rabbit hole. But the tradition does exist. He may not see. I'm just trying to read your comment there, Chad. To catch up, he may not see at once that he has barely scratched a limitless load which will pay dividends only if he mines it for the rest of his life and insists on giving away the entire product. Page 129. What are you quoting there? Give me a little bit more context. It's cool. Yeah. Easier to believe that Jesus is an alien than he loves me unconditionally. That there's not a transaction, right? That's the key. Everything else is this transaction between rebellious humanity and rebellious sons of God, however you want to parse that out. I tend to agree with Michael Heiser. It makes a lot of sense. Once you fit that piece in from Genesis 6, a lot of other pieces fit. But that there's not there's a free gift at the end, that Christ offers himself freely, and I have nothing to give. Yeah. And it's interesting. I've seen the word Gnostic in the chat, and I see Chad saying it's a secret. It's interesting. I would say we're touching on a mystery, and because we're touching on a mystery, Christianity, for whatever reason, for that reason, because there is mystery in it, we're finite. We're trying to understand an infinite God. There's always this Gnosticism that creeps in. Essentially that's what this is. You can become God. You can become, all of the secrets of the world, this forbidden knowledge, it's just in you. It's in you. So what I really wish is that as these conversations take place, this Billy Carson, I could probably get rid of this. These conversations on Joe Rogan, this idea that Jesus was an alien. Even Alex O'Connor posted something today that I just went, man, we need a biblical scholar to step forward and be a part of this public conversation. Okay, thanks, Chad. It's from another big book. Got it. Okay, I thought that maybe that's what it was. Cool, thank you. I'm glad you guys are here. I hope you had a good week. I began this by sharing a song that I enjoyed. I've discovered this song this week, so if you guys had something you discovered this week that you enjoyed, share it with the hive mind as it is, as it will be. Okay, yeah, go check out Poor Man's Poison. And I hope you guys are having a good week. We are kind of attacking the darkness. Okay, and then to follow up with Scott, thank you for correcting us. You can't actually attack the darkness because you actually have to see your target. Where was it? I actually want to get this. Okay, you can't use magic missile to attack the darkness, as you have to be able to see the target to cast the spell. Thank you. You've put us on the right track. That is true. I'm not a D&D expert. I spent most of my time playing World of Warcraft and Diablo. But I love it. I love that there's that culture. Thank you for guiding us down that path. Okay, Hugh Ross. Okay, yeah, Thank you. Yeah, that sounds like a Hugh Ross thing to do. Hugh Ross went on one of these Gnostic Ancient Aliens big YouTube channel. It's interesting. Michael Heiser was invited on Ancient Aliens, and they recorded an entire episode. He talks about it in I don't remember where. I'll find it and I'll link it. But I think I clipped part of it. I used part of it from this. I'll find the actual video that this is from. But he talks about going. Michael Heiser was invited on Ancient Aliens. They flew him out to LA. He recorded all day long. He could tell that he wasn't saying what they wanted him to say, and they ended up scrapping his episode. They never aired it. So that's a little bit of Heiser lore there. But we need a biblical scholar. I mean, the reason I tend to rely on Michael Heiser for these conversations is because he was an expert in these ancient languages. He was a Old Testament scholar. He certainly knew a lot about the Bible in general, and his stuff on Revelation is great. I'm actually putting some stuff together for that. Just here to do the Lord's will and correct you on your obscure 80s board games references. Thank you. I love it. That's what I'm saying. I get the feedback. So there is a little bit of transaction. Quiet nerd. I love it. Thank you guys for being here, brightening my week. This is why we have to attack the darkness together, because it lightens the mood. We need a biblical scholar, and what's so funny, and I wonder if this is a sub theme of what's going on, because Michael Heiser was brought up by Graham Hancock in episode 872. This is probably 2 years ago, something like that.
You're right. Skepticism really has an important role to play. It's really essential that we are skeptical.
Otherwise, we'd all be following Zechariah Sitchin and waiting for the Anunnaki to land.
Exactly.
We would have sold our houses December 21st, 2012, and we'd all be going, what the fuck, now I'm homeless.
Exactly.
4 years later.
And I have to say, there's a skeptic called Michael Heiser who has done really an excellent job of thoroughly, debunking the bogus translations of Zechariah Sitchin.
Yeah, is he sitchiniswrong.com? Is that
Sitchiniswrong.com.
Yeah,
it's a very useful site. So I
hated him and loved him at the same time. I was so sad. I love the idea of the aliens come down and manipulating the monkeys and making us to mine gold. It's a wonderful story.
But unfortunately, it's a work of science fiction. It's not a work of fact.
Damn it.
It's a work of science fiction. It's
you're right.
It's not a work of fact. Thank you, Michael Heiser, Joe Rogan, and Graham Hancock, given the shout out there a couple years ago. I really do wonder if Joe ever reached out to Michael Heiser, and Heiser just was never able to make it. That was about the time his health started to decline. He passed away. Gosh, was it a year and a half ago now? I think it was in February. I think it was February of last year. So yeah, it would have been hard for him to. It would have just been so freaking awesome to get an actual biblical scholar to talk to Joe Rogan and some of these people about this, because it's funny. You hear this. I'm gonna mute it, but you hear Joe entertain this. He's like, we'd all be believing these crazy things about the Anunnaki and all this stuff from Zechariah Sitchin's. And then when you listen to him talk to Billy Carson, he kind of like just lets Billy Carson go on that story, and he's basically retelling it. Carson says he doesn't really follow Zechariah Sitchin's, but he really does kind of repurpose the story. I mean, he sort of says that he doesn't rely on Sitchin as an expert or something like that, but then he basically tells the same stories. And here you have Michael Heiser, essentially just and going through, and sitchiniswrong.com. It's so funny. This is Heiser's website. It's so brilliant. I should have had it ready. But it's literally sitchiniswrong.com, but I'll go ahead and link it in the chat anyway. Because then Joe, Emily found it. Hugh Ross went on Julian Dory podcast. There you go. Check it out. There it is. I did link it. My previous self didn't remind my future self that I was going to be doing that, but here it is again.
When people go crazy about him. Zechariah Sitchin's work was like the most controversial on the Sumerian text, right? Yes. Because there's a whole website called sitchiniswrong.com when people go crazy about him.
So there you go. So Joe still gets it, he still understands. This was 2 weeks ago that he was talking to Billy Carson, and throws out Heiser's website there for you. And then, and this is just what's so frustrating, right? You hear stuff like this.
Aramaic and everything else. These gods, and I do mean gods with an S, because everywhere in the Bible where it says God singular, it's actually a mistranslation. The actual, if you backwards look up the translation in Arabic and then down to Aramaic and everything else, you find out it's gods plural.
Yeah. You hear crap like that, and it's just like so frustrating. It's so frustrating that you think like, millions of people are hearing this, and yet,
humanity was created by extra.
What you need is an actual biblical scholar to explain. Yeah, Elohim it's a plural word. It's a plural word, but the context is not plural. That's how you do actual biblical interpretation. You have to look at the context. And so, I guess here, you know what? Let's speed him up a little bit.
So what are some of the things that Zecharia Sitchin teaches that I object to, again, as a biblical scholar? Well, let's start with one that everybody seems to have heard of, and that is Sitchin's idea that the Bible really teaches in Genesis 1, specifically Genesis 1:26, that humanity was created by extraterrestrials, by aliens. And he gets this by talking about the word Elohim. Now, in Genesis 1:26, he has a very familiar verse. So God said, "Let us create humankind in our image and our likeness." And so God created humankind, male and female, in his likeness. People will note that the plural language there, and they'll also point out that, well, God, the word for God there is Elohim. And Elohim in Hebrew is a plural. And if you don't have, again, facility in the ancient languages, or at least Hebrew, you could be misled by this. Sitchin fundamentally misunderstands the term Elohim, and he fundamentally misunderstands Genesis 1:26 because he ignores grammar. Now, let's just start with the word Elohim, and then we'll talk about what the verse actually is describing. Elohim is spelled as a plural. The I-M ending on Hebrew nouns is the sign of the plural. But that doesn't mean that it points to plural beings. In the Genesis 1 passage, when Elohim actually creates humans, male and female, in Genesis 1:27, all of the verbs are singular. Subject-verb agreement. It's grammar. This tells you that a singular God is the creator. And not only in Genesis 1, but every passage in the Hebrew Bible that talks about the creation of humanity is always with singular verbs. Every one of them. It's entirely consistent. So when Sitchin says that Elohim means that we were created by multiple extraterrestrials or a team of extraterrestrials, he's not telling you the truth. Okay, this is a misunderstanding, whether it's him being ignorant of the situation or something more deliberate, I don't know.
Him being ignorant of the situation or something more deliberate, I don't know. But that's essentially why, and I'm trying to deliver on the title in the thumbnail here, Grim. That's why I titled this, People Are Lying to You. People are lying to you. Let's see, what did I title this? Where's my title? Help me. Help me. Yes, Scott, to answer your question, Heiser was, he does take the divine counsel interpretation. That's how he interprets Genesis 6, Job, Psalm 82. It's kind of off the top of my head. People are lying to you. Luciferian, spirituality in politics and podcasting. And I will correct Luciferian after the live stream concludes. Politics and podcasting. Yeah, well, that's where we're attacking the darkness. Okay, but that's where D&D comes in. We have to see it. We have to be careful and discerning that we're actually seeing clearly in it through a dark. I know I'm sort of mixing it. I don't play D&D, and I'm sorry if I'm totally botching this, but it just like using that as an analogy for our current situation. It's like it seems like we're seeing through a lot of darkness, but there are things that illuminate our path, and the Word of God is one of those things. The person of Christ is one of those. The Spirit of God. Luciferin. That's right. Let's go. Let's do. Yeah, Lucifer. Yeah. Anyway. Again, it's code, guys. We don't really want them to find us, so we have to misspell these things, right? That's why we use, like, not letters but symbols. yeah, so it's sad that Joe Rogan will not be able to have Dr. Michael Heiser on his podcast. But here's a playlist for anybody that wants to rock and roll with a Heiser playlist. Let me see. I will grab this. I can share it with y'all tonight if you want to go. And Scott, yeah, and anybody else that's interested in Heiser's work, there it is. And then if you want to look at the video that I did, where we were talking about the divine council, help me out. Oh, there's Sean Ryan. That's I was trying to show. Here, that goes there. Giants from Genesis to Revelation was this one, and that's where I'm engaging with Michael Heiser and Inspiring Philosophy, because I think they're both named Michael. Actually, Michael Jones, I think, is his name, from Inspiring Philosophy. He takes the other view, that it's human leaders in that Genesis 6, but it just doesn't. Yeah, if you want to watch that, you can get my take on it, and why I kind of lean more towards Heiser. And so that's where I think we start to.
So what are some of the things that Zechariah Sitchin teaches that?
Matt said that I could use this. I didn't ask Grim Grizz though, so sorry. I'm using your tweet here, Grizz. Principalities, but okay, so TLC, if for anybody that isn't familiar with TLC, the reference to TLC, this little corner of the internet, John Vervaeke, Jonathan Peugeot, Jordan Peterson, part of my corner has been sort of Joe Rogan and a bit of Russel Brand, as well as Jordan Peterson, but Jordan Peterson essentially brought me to Paul Vanderklay, so you can watch his stuff. Grizz is there, Chad, some of the others who are in the chat tonight. That is TLC. That's the we're the nerds attacking the darkness together. That's what we are. Lots of conversation about principalities, egregores, angels by other names, spirits. This is, I often think of Ephesians 6, which we already looked at. Anyway, we looked at it. I promise. And then John Vervaeke talks about essentially being visited by Hermes. Hermes is the messenger of the gods. Hermes is the trickster. Hermes was in one of my... I can give you my whole take on Hermes. But it's interesting in that as a trickster... Well, I lost it. I lost the thread. There it is. You would never know if... Alex, what's up? You would never know. How do you trust the messenger of the gods if the messenger of the gods might be playing a trick on you? So it's really interesting symbolism within this sort of, I don't know what you call Hermes. But Vervaeke is talking about being visited by Hermes. And as soon as a Buddhist is talking about a Greek deity, everyone says it's demon possession or psychosis. And there's nuance. And I want to be a person who's better at nuance. I don't want to just be like, it's demons and all this stuff. But Lance then brings up Heiser and Lord of the Spirits. People that have engaged with Heiser and Lord of the Spirits, remind me, if you guys know in the chat, who are the guys from the Lord of the Spirits? A couple of Orthodox people. I can't remember. I always get their names. I never remember their names. Okay, Matt said something about... Sorry, guys, I lost the thread. He said something, satanic panic. I'm looking for the thing where he says satanic panic. I thought I had it. Anyway. Because then I posted. Where is my? I don't have it. Let me see. Because I posted in that thread. I posted in it, didn't I? Thanks for hanging in there, guys. I found it. Thanks for hanging in there. It's this part of the thread. I'll be the one to say that an angel is talking to a Buddhist. Okay, this is what triggered me back to the whole conversation with Louis Marcos and the fact that all these Hellenistic, the Greek myths and all this stuff is the preparation for the gospel, and preparing people to hear the gospel. They can associate it with the myths that they were sort of raised with. Sorry. I'm not supposed to be showing that. Oof. Sorry, guys. Sorry. I don't think I doxed anybody, but whatever. Young and Damick. Yeah, thank you. Are the Lord of the Spirits guys. Thank you. I didn't click my messages. I think it just clicked. Anyway, sorry, Christian, if I doxed you, man. And mostly not working. If you're on that, sorry, guys. I'll go back and check it and make sure there wasn't anything, no part of that private conversation. Or maybe you guys can check it and let me know if it's okay to keep it. And if not, I'll take the stream down. I didn't actually see what was in the thread. So I'll be the one to say that an angel is talking to a Buddhist, and Louis Marcos, and the idea, again, that every lie comes with a seed of truth. And when the lie no longer has the strength to endure, it dies away. And then that seed of truth feeds on the decaying lie and then bears fruit. I think we're seeing that. That is why all kinds of crazy stuff. So, and because Paul Vanderklay had a conversation about the syncretism that rightly, that's essentially what is happening here. It's like, this isn't really syncretism. This is just sort of, I guess you could call it heresy, but it's not coming from a Christian person. So, can you be a heretic? I don't know. It's this idea that all of these ancient myths are telling the same thing, which I would say there's nuance there. They're touching on the same thing. They're in conversation. They're in dialogue. The Old Testament is a collection of books that's written into a culture, and it is conversant with that culture. It is in dialogue with the other myths and legends that, let's say, the Canaanite people would have understood. And that's why the biblical authors, you can think of the scene in the Exodus when essentially the 10 plagues is a response to different deities within the Egyptian pantheon. And so the Bible is constantly in conversation with these other traditions, because the Bible is a collection of works written into the culture. And it's not some esoteric out there woo-woo thing that doesn't make any sense and doesn't give itself permission to carry on that conversation. And so I would say there's a type of syncretism that would lead to deception. But then there's a type of understanding that, is it possible that God is just is he reaping the harvest of those seeds of truth that were planted inside these other pagan legends? I don't know. Help me out with this, because it's just an idea that I'm working through. And so Paul touched on that in that conversation, and then the conversation with Louis Marcos that I already brought up. Seeds of truth in many places are beginning to sprout, bear fruit, and harvesting. I suspect Vervaeke is not the only Buddhist who's talking with angels. You see it. You hear stories of people all over the place. Neutrino, What's up? Yes, follow the white rabbit. Follow. Yeah. Discern. I keep thinking the word discern comes back to me. Discern the spirit, test the spirits. I brought that up towards the end of this political spiritual warfare, and test the fruit. Right. That's the idea here of the devil in Karl Marx. Is the fruit of that ideology, or the spirit behind communism, is lots and lots of people die. Lots of them. Okay, that's not the type of fruit. That fruit tells you where that idea comes from. Okay, so that conversation keeps going. Good on you guys. Thanks for letting me kind of share that. Sorry, I kind of lost the thread for you guys who were watching it live, but. I think that's the hope, right? I'm trying to touch on, in a world of chaos and darkness, there's hope. That's why we go to Gandalf at the end here. That's why we pull from people like Michael Heiser, who understood these things. And I hope that a biblical scholar emerges on something like Joe Rogan here. We've seen enough Billy here. He interviewed Stephen C. Meyer, but Meyer's not a biblical scholar. He's a philosopher. He's a Christian philosopher. And this Alex O'Connor video dropped. Why I don't trust the Bible. Hold on.
Some people said that I shouldn't
mute it. And again, it's like, okay, guys, he's asking Dinesh D'Souza questions that you would ask a biblical scholar. D'Souza's not a biblical scholar. I don't think he's a scholar. He's a political commentator. I mean, I don't mind the guy. I think he's got some interesting things to say. But Alex O'Connor riffs like multiple questions off. And of course, I'm sure, I didn't see this debate, but I'm assuming those would be very hard for someone like Dinesh to answer. Did I say Vivek earlier? Dinesh D'Souza. Sorry, they're both in politics, so don't ask these questions. It's like this. If you ask questions that should be directed to a biblical scholar, to someone who's not a biblical scholar, I think you're telling me you don't want the answer. So when like Joe has this conversation with Billy Carson just seeks to say whatever crazy crap he wants to say about how the Bible mistranslates God as being singular instead of plural. It's like, no biblical scholar is going to let you get away with that. They're going to say, well, hold on. It's not a mistranslation. We are translating, and every time we translate, we have to make a choice. That choice has to do with context. And that's why we go to Michael Heiser. And I think that there is some hope. There is some hope that, again, those seeds will germinate, and a public theologian will emerge, and a biblical scholar will emerge, because there's so many of these conversations going on, and yet where are the Michael Heisers, I guess, of the world? Am I a biblical scholar? I am a student. I am a Bible student. Eventually, I mean, this is something for the Shadow Cabal to, if you want to support me in a PhD program, then I could go by Dr. Strange, right? But yeah, I would love to do more. I mean, I've said this before in my podcast, but I'm always touching the edge of my knowledge with stuff like this. That's part of why this is fun for me. I explore stuff that's a little unknown. I realize that might not make for the greatest content, as YouTube wants you to be a scholar or an expert in your field. But part of the reason I do this is because this podcast essentially is an attempt at dialogue. And if I sit down and I just say, this is the way it is, that's not dialogue. If I say, hey guys, I'm thinking about something here. This got me, this Billy Carson guy kind of pissed me off a little bit. So I went down a rabbit hole. I started exploring the Emerald Tablets of Thoth. You're welcome. And yet it takes me back to just the need for better biblical scholarship. So, Unwokel, that's the first time I've seen you. How's it going? Yeah, did I say, as you said, love Vivek, and I was wondering if I said Vivek instead of Dinesh. Okay, Emily, I did see your question. Give me a second. There it is. Pete, have you come across a biblical scholar, Matthew L. Halstead? No, but thank you. I think he would be great to have on your channel. He is Heiser adjacent. Okay, well that's awesome because Lou Marcos is Heiser adjacent. That was part of how I found Dr. Louis Marcos, and he would be a great one. I mean, he's very like Heiser-esque in that he pulls. I mean, he pulls from classic works. Matthew L. Halstead. I will look that up. Thank you, Emily, for that. What text? Yeah, I mean, Neutrino, great observation. What text do biblical scholars have that we don't? I mean, we have them. That's what's so beautiful about the Bible. Is it's not this hidden knowledge, this forbidden knowledge that that Billy Carson and people like him try to profit off of. The Bible has always been in your face and in the public square, and there are just the documentary evidence for the Bible. I know it probably won't answer, and let me know what you guys think. Let me know if you want me to dive into this. I've done some Alex O'Connor stuff in the past, and I resist it because this is not an apologetics channel, but I have sort of like a history in apologetics. That was where I sort of started my studies. And so when I hear Alex O'Connor, it does kind of get that apologetic, trigger. It triggers me in that part of me that's still kind of an apologist. And again, part of it would just be to be conversational, and not necessarily, I'm sure people will respond to this video and Christian apologists will respond to it, and they'll do it in a very apologetic way, not like apologizing, but like in a very philosophical debate. You said this, I'm going to respond to you and show you why you're wrong. I'm going to say I would rather just sort of challenge the sort of presuppositions. Again, why are you asking questions of a biblical scholar to somebody who's not a biblical scholar? Does that mean you don't want the answer? And then when the Bible says things that you don't like, does that mean the Bible's not true? Because that's essentially what I hear from Alex O'Connor. He brings up stuff in the Bible that he doesn't like. It's not stuff I like either. It's hard. It's difficult. That doesn't mean the Bible's not true. It just means it's challenging you. It just means it's difficult to understand. Okay, good. What about Trump? Okay. Unwokel, if you want the Trump well, you know what? I put Trump in the thumbnail of this video back here with Karl Marx. I'm not hinting at anything there, but more as a political figure, as I try to talk about how it's not just politics, but we don't actually go into Donald Trump. There is an account that I follow on X that I find fascinating. I don't agree with his take, but I'm not on X to agree with people. I'm on X to find fun little rabbit holes, and his is, if you want Trump stuff, conspiracy theories, you got to go to Donnie Darkened on Twitter. I don't remember. I'm sure I follow him. Anyway, it's just a hoot. People are fun. I don't take it too seriously. I mean, hopefully I take it with the right kind of seriousness. I can't find him. Sorry, guys. But it's Donnie Darkened or Donnie. It's a reference to Donnie Darko, I think. Okay. Okay, yeah, like the Nicene Creed. Yeah. And Neutrino, I get that, you know, and I think that's why we need to have these conversations. That's why I had said that, you know, some of what Billy Carson said pissed me off. I mean, it just kind of like, because he popped up all over the place, and it was just like, okay, fine, I'm done. I have to figure out what he's saying, and then figure out how I understand what he's saying. And that's a good thing. That's a good thing. And that's why we need to have kind of the stuffy scholars that are unmovable and they're really just like stuck in their ways. That's fine. Let those people do their thing. And then we need to have the people like, I mean, I did one on, is it the cross? It's not the cross and the sacred mushroom. What's his book called? It's on the origins of Christianity being tied to the Eleusinian mystery cult. Brian Murarescu. Did he do the sacred mushroom in the cross? No, it's not the sacred mushroom in the cross. I forget what Brian Murarescu's book is called. Anyway, there it is. We need people with wild theories to then challenge those people with sort of that have the more stuck ideological positions, and then have conversation. The point is, if we can't have conversation, that's where things get problematic for me, which is why I'm pushing Joe Rogan to get a biblical scholar. I'm pushing Alex O'Connor to talk to a biblical scholar. Don't ask questions that you would ask to a biblical scholar, to a political commentator, he's a Christian man, Dinesh D'Souza is, but that doesn't mean he's a Bible scholar capable of answering these questions. So that's what it is. O'Connor kind of seems like he's on a vendetta against Christianity. Seems to coincide with Dawkins. Yeah, well, he challenged Dawkins. Actually, it's funny. I'm so torn on Alex O'Connor. Like, there's half of his interviews I really like him. The other half I'm like, okay, come on, man. But his Dawkins interview was great, and his interview with Jordan Peterson was great. I was on Alex's side on both of those. Oh, the rumor is John Trump got Tesla's. Yeah, okay. Did the Y-Files do something on that? I feel like they touched on it. Yeah. I have not quite gone down that whole rabbit hole, but I do think that Donnie Darkin touches on that. Yeah, Emily says that this debate was bad. I had a feeling it would be. I didn't see it. That's unfortunate. It really is. Like, where's the biblical scholar? I need a hero. And again, not to rescue us and make us feel like we can sit comfortably in our ideological Christian bubble, but to just have conversation, to just actually, because I feel like these are just not very good responses. I'm sorry. And again, I didn't actually watch it, but certainly like this stuff is not great. So yeah, Tesla. Okay, that will be fun because, well, so to Neutrino's question, that the Tesla rabbit hole is a fascinating one. I love ancient history. And that's one of the reasons that makes me so curious about the Bible and so fascinated about the Bible. And where do we go from here, guys? Where do we go? We go here. So let me know if you want. Let me know if you want the Alex O'Connor commentary or if that's just off-brand. I'm gonna put another thing together for TLC, involving like sort of the spirit the Spirit of God in the digital church sort of phenomenon, because I do, again, that's where I see the hope. I really do love going down the ancient history thing. And one of the thoughts that I have, I'm sorry if this is annoying to scroll, it's like making me dizzy, but one of the things that I wanted to do is actually recover a very old video that I did with Graham Hancock. This was me like learning what YouTube was or how to be on it. These conversations between Joe Rogan and Graham Hancock are fascinating. And it kind of motivated me to get into this podcasting space because, again, it seemed like there was just holes in the conversation. There wasn't a biblical scholar out there. How many times can I say a biblical scholar? But what's fascinating is that ancient people were way smarter than we give them credit for. And for me, that lines up with the biblical account of humanity, that we were made in the image of God, that we were made in this unfallen state, that we were put in a garden, that we had mastery over the earth as stewards and as co-creators with God, and then we rebelled, and everything that we have seen since is a result of that fall. That's why humanity is capable of such good and such evil. We sort of have this two natures now that are at war with each other. And so I might go back. I might go back into the JRE archives and have another conversation about that. I may also, this Duncan Trussell one was fascinating, and the Revelation, when they go into the book of Revelation, this is old school, but, and I'm sorry, I'm just like scrolling through my stuff, but it helps me like visualize what I'm saying. This was so fun doing this video, the End Times Bible Study with Joe Rogan and Duncan Trussell, because they just open up the book of Revelation and they start reading it, and then they start freaking out about it. And it's so good. And then later on, they do this. He does the same thing with the book of Ezekiel, but I can't remember what podcast it's about. So it would just be fun to do both of those. And again, like, I think the book of Revelation is fascinating because it's a book. It's an encouragement to a community of believers who are living through a chaotic time. And the encouragement is God is good and God is in control. And though things look chaotic and out of control and even evil and dark, like all this crap that we've been talking about, there is a more powerful force at work. And I think part of our challenge is just we're not in harmony with Yahweh. We're not in harmony with our Creator. And so we don't see what He's doing. We see what the enemy is doing. And this was C.S. Lewis's point at when he wrote the Screwtape Letters. He was asked about it, and he was like, actually, it was really easy to read, or really easy to write the Screwtape Letters, because that's sort of my sort of native habitat. I live in this world of kind of evil. So, hey, I have been chatting for longer than I expected. Thank you guys for hanging out. Thank you for being here. Share if this is encouraging to you. If any of this stuff is, if any of these videos are encouraging, I would just ask you to share them. Share and engage. Let me know your thoughts. So I really love you guys hanging out. I didn't read all of the chat, but hopefully I got most of it. High tides, low tides, what will be again? That reminds me of a Bob Marley song. What will be again? Yeah, interesting. Interesting to think about it that way. It's interesting. This is the other thing. Neutrinos got me thinking about this. I could use some of my class videos from when I was studying at Knox. I wonder, I'm assuming they're copyright from the university, but if I use short clips, I think I could get away with it. And I'd have to do some digging, but I was in a class on Old Testament. It was really fun. And one of the things the professor said just stuck with me, but I can't figure out exactly. I know what he meant, and I remember the words he used, but I don't know that they make sense. He said, Jesus Christ is the archetype, and all of history is the ectype. And what he's saying is Jesus Christ is at the center of history, and everything in history forms around the person of Christ. So that's why, to Neutrino's point, it's like this high tide, low tide. Things seem to rhyme in history. We think of history as linear, starting from point A and going to point B. But what if it's spherical and at the center is the person of Christ? That's why all of history in the BC history looks like we just talked about with Louis Marcos. It's being shaped and molded in such a way that when Christ comes, it makes sense. And then obviously history, since his death, resurrection, and ascension, has been shaped by the person of Christ. That's a fascinating idea that I really would like to understand more, but I have this word ectype in my mind, and I've looked it up, and I don't think it's a word. So maybe I'll find that. But yeah, Christ is the capstone, to Emily's point. I mean, God is building he's building all kinds of stuff, but he's building the city of God. He's building the temple. Christ is the capstone. I mean, he fits everything together with Christ at the head. He fits all of human history together in the same way. I think we're on to something there. Yeah, that's a good point. Sorry, I was about to land the plane, and then I got totally started thinking about that because again, I just like this. I like these types of things, and when I get a chance to read your guys' comments, it spurs me on, and I like that. Yeah, Plato's form, the second Adam. Exactly. Yeah. Adam. This is so interesting. This will take me on to some LDS theology and stuff like that. That they play with this idea of the God man and Adam. Adam is, yeah. Well, and I guess I don't want to get too distracted, especially if I'm getting tired, because then I'll say something that's going to be heretical. But I'm developing that as well. I'm about to have a talk, and I need to go back and read my emails. Sorry, guys, if I scheduled a conversation with you and then didn't follow up because I didn't read my email, I'm sorry. But I've got a few more lined up, so that'll be fun. And the looking at the connection with the LDS theology to some of what we're talking about will be an interesting one, because I think they're very much at play with the Skinwalker Ranch and all that. Sorry, this is annoying, but I keep thinking of it, like hopefully what we're building here in this podcast is like an archives for you guys. Like all of these videos essentially hyperlink to each other. Like I make a video and then it spurs me on to another video, and then they're kind of conversant, but this Skinwalker Ranch video is really interesting. And what I'm noticing is it's actually starting to get more clicks for some reason. I don't know. It was hanging out kind of at a 700 and recently just jumped up. But essentially there's theology at work within the LDS tradition that's not much different than some of what we've been talking about, particularly when it comes to humanity becoming God. So that'll be interesting. Hopefully this hasn't been playing in the background. Sorry if it has been. Okay. I'm going to get off Twitter because I don't want to dox anybody again. There's my face. Don't want to see that. It's creepy. We're all somebody's heretic. Thank you. Good night. Maybe that's where we end it. I appreciate you guys hanging out with me, and I'll catch you in the next one.